Hello and welcome to the Sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Players Championship 2016 edition. I'm Nick Miller alongside the best dressed man on the SCG Tour, Todd Stevens. How you doing?
I am doing wonderful. Nick, how are you doing?
Pretty good. You qualified as a seasonal point leader, or not a seasonal, a yearly point leader.
Right.
You know, all year long you were at every Open. Working hard, getting there. You did a lot of work early in Season 1 in Modern. Naya Company was the deck of choice then. You're playing something completely different in Modern for this event.
Yeah, Naya Company then was a really good choice because of Splinter Twin. It was really good against the card Lightning Bolt, but now with Splinter Twin out of the format, and we've also gotten some new tools from Oath of the Gatewatch, we're changing it up.
Yeah, Eldrazi have taken over from the original build that got banned to the banned Eldrazi. Now, Eldrazi Tron is the choice you have brought to the table. You've been playing banned Eldrazi a lot on the SCG Tour. Now you've kind of gone up the chain, putting the Tron lands in as well.
Yeah, it's just Eldrazi Tron has a higher ceiling than Bant Eldrazi when you do hit turn 3 Tron, which happens some games, like you're just really going off. But it also has it just has a solid mid game as well, just like Bant Eldrazi.
Let's dive into the deck because you got some pretty interesting choices going on here. Now, of course, you can't say Eldrazi without thinking Thought-Knots here. This is the card that makes Eldrazi Eldrazi.
Yep.
Matter Shaper. The interesting card to me here is 4 Hangerback Walker.
Yeah, Hangerback Walker is just kind of a glue card. It's not really ever bad against anything. It's not ever a spectacular card, but it can just do so much. Sometimes you need to use your own removal spells on it because you need blockers for Inkmoth Nexus. Sometimes you're just playing your creatures and your opponents try to wrath your board, but your Hangerback tokens still survive. It's good early. It's good late. When you have a lot of mana, you can sink into it. It's just a solid card.
Okay. Going along with Matter Shaper, kind of giving you that wrath resilience. You know. Move on to the next slide here. We're going to see some more Eldrazi, of course. Reality Smasher usually going hand in hand with Thought-Knots here. But you also got 3 copies of Endbringer. That's a lot. Yeah,
Endbringer's kind of the card draw engine for whenever you do have your Tron online. 3 copies may be one too many, but if you can land Endbringer on tap with it, it just automatically takes the game over.
Yeah, I have seen that card demolish some strategies on 1 card alone. Now, of course, you got an Ulamog in here as well. It's kind of your high end.
Right, and there's a lot of decks that you can survive enough turns to be able to find your Tron pieces and cast Ulamog.
Okay, moving on. We shall see Karn. Now, Karn, usually a 4 of in Tron decks. It's weird to see 1 copy.
Yeah, it's just kind of there. It's just too strong not to play, really. I didn't play it for the longest time, and there's really not any reason not to play at least 1 card. It's pretty hard to cast. The Eldrazi Temple doesn't help it, which is so it's pretty difficult to cast at times. But there's no reason not to play one copy.
And we have some Dismembers, and then All Is Dust. This is kind of one of the huge payoffs to playing this style of deck. You know, the banned Eldrazi decks have a hard time casting this card, whereas you, with Tron, you can blow up all the permanents.
Yeah, and it is tribal sorcery, so Eldrazi Temple can help towards casting your All Is Dust as well, which is really nice, because sometimes you want to use your Expedition maps, which we haven't gotten to yet, but to get your Eldrazi Temples, and Temples can help cast your All Is Dust. All Is Dust is your best card against decks like Jund. It'll just take everything out from their Liliana the Veils, Tarmogoyfs, Dark Confidants, everything. Just gets rid of everything.
Yeah, just a super powerful card when all of your permanents are colorless. No one else's are.
Yeah. Blood Moon is really picked up in Modern, and so a lot of people like to fight a deck like this with Blood Moon. All Is Dust takes that problem out.
We'll get to your lands eventually. You've run like 24 of them in this thing, right?
Yep.
All right, so speaking of which, there's your Exhibition Map and some Relic of Progenitus, kind of the Tron stylings here. So you kind of get the benefits of that, being able to hate Dredge and have your land search in those 2 cards.
Yeah, you can't really beat, like, without Relic of Progenitus, it's not really realistic to beat Dredge game 1. Dredge is just such a good deck. So it's kind of necessary to have in the deck. And it's also just good against a variety of decks. A lot of people are relying on their graveyards these days.
Yep, Snapcaster Mage,
Tarmogoyf
cards.
I love being able to block a Tarmogoyf with like a Thopter token and then blowing up Relic afterwards after damage has already been dealt. Love it.
All right, well, let's take a look here. Spatial Contortion is your other removal spell of choice.
Yeah, that slot is just it's kind of a nod towards Burn or just Zoo type decks. Like I want to be able to kill Wild Nacatls, Eidolons, all that kind of stuff. It's possible I should have that slot should be kind of mixed in with Warping Whale a little bit. Warping Whale's really picked up in value with Dredge being really good to be able to counter Cathartic Reunions or exile Bloodghast. I've always been happy with Spatial Contortion. It's also just a good lightning bolt effect when paired with like a Reality Smasher. Like whenever I'm attacking in, it's a good way to finish the game as well.
Yep, just being able to kill them off. And of course, we're going to see the lands here. The Tron, of course, this is why you're playing the deck. Gives you all the mana. We'll move on, and then we're going to get to see some pretty fun ones here after this page. We got Cavern, which I assume is naming Eldrazi.
Yep.
Then you have your 4 Temple. Then 4 Ghost Quarter is a lot of Ghost Quarters.
Yeah, the one deck I really struggled with is Valakut, just Valakut strategies, and so Ghost Quarter is going to pair with one of my sideboard cards for my best option against that deck. There's also just a lot of utility lands in Modern right now, from Inkmoth Nexus to Creeping Tar Pit, Raging Ravine, all that kind of stuff. And then against just other Tron builds, it's my best way to fight the other Tron builds as well.
Plus, there's just not a ton of basic lands. You can often just turn this into Wasteland at some point in most Modern games.
That's true.
So moving on. Gemstone Cavern, card you talked about in your article this week.
Yep.
Talk about this card along with your basic wastes here. I guess these are just Path to Exile targets.
Yeah, they're the basic wastes are Path to Exile targets, or even Expedition Map. Like maybe my opponent plays Blood Moon, I have Thought on Seer, stuff like that, and I can use Expedition Map to go get my basic waste to be able to cast them. So they're definitely necessary, or fighting other Ghost Quarters for my opponent. The Gemstone Caverns replaced Seagate Wreckage, which I've usually played in the deck. I liked Seagate Wreckage as a 1-of to be able to get with Expedition Map. But just the power of Gemstone Caverns in the early game is just undeniable. In my article, I talked about how it's almost like a Mox Diamond that you can use in Modern. And so even though it's somewhat awkward sometimes when you're just assembling Tron, because it's just like the 1 extra mana isn't that big a deal, but it's really the best in the games that you don't have Tron immediately.
Sure. Just being able to have your creatures out a little earlier is going to be pretty good. Let's move on to the sideboard here. 4 Chalice of the Main, 4 Surgical Extractions. It's kind of clear these are the cards you want. What are the matchups you want these for?
All right, let's start with Surgical Extraction, because I was kind of talking about that with Ghost Court a little bit. So Surgical Extraction's not only wonderful hate against Dredge, you usually want to take Prized Amalgam. That's what I found out. Like, it's just always correct to take Prized Amalgam with the first Surgical Extraction. But it's my way when paired with Ghost Court to take out Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle, and the other Tron lands from my opponent. Chalice of the Void is, I have a lot of experience with that card, obviously, with White-Red Prison. But it's the best against Infect and Burn, and then some other decks, kind of like the Blue-Red Kiln Fiend deck, Death Shadow aggro, elves, just a random assortment like that. Yep. There's most of the metagame it's not that effective against, but the decks you do want it with, it's very good. Yeah, the decks where you want it, it's usually the best card in the matchup. Plus, I got to mention the Gemstone Cavern equity. Sometimes you get to play it on the first turn. Right, yeah, and so that's nice. I don't have the Simian Spirit Guides anymore, so I don't get to play on the first turn regularly, but it's still a good card to have. All right. Now, this one caught me off guard. Maskless Collar. Take us through what's going on here. Well, it's just an adorable puppy. That's why we're playing. That card's actually, I've actually loved that card. So the lifelink is really important in matchups like Burn. Those or any kind of aggressive deck that's trying to kill you. Sometimes you need a 4/4 lifelink, 5/5 lifelink. It's really good. Now, the one part that's kind of cute, but it's also just really good is whenever you get to put it on an Endbringer. Because Endbringer can tap to deal 1 damage to a creature. Now, if Endbringer has Death Touch, that creature is just going to be going away unless it's indestructible. Yeah. Suddenly a machine gun has appeared. Yep. All right, I like that interaction. Let's see what else you got here. 2 Spellskite, another All Is Dust, and a Pithing Needle. Spellskite, I think, just has earned its spot in most decks at this point, with Infect and Death Shadow being real threats. Yeah, it's basically necessary. I had it in the main for a while, just never really liked it against almost everything, but Infect and the Temur Battle Rage decks are just too good that you have to play it. Another All Is Dust, just catch-all here? Yep, another catch-all against any kind of creature strategy going wide, or just random like Blood Moon decks, or really basically specifically Jund. It's one of my best cards against Jund. Pithing Needle, what are we naming here? With Pithing Needle, it's just another good catch-all. We can be naming Inkmoth Nexus. It's kind of awkward they're bringing in when we're bringing in Chalice, but without much acceleration. Chalice usually coming down on 2. It's also just going to be coming in against any kind of Planeswalker deck as well.
All right, what do we got? Anything else here? Batterskull gets its own slide.
Yep. Yeah, it's just another good threat against control decks because you can keep returning it back to your hand, keep replaying it, especially if you have lots of mana with the Tron lands. Yeah, just another good card.
Right. So you chose to bring this Eldrazi Tron deck, so what are you assuming the metagame's going to look like? It looks like you're kind of eyeballing a lot of Jund mid-range decks.
I am. Yeah, I think that I think a lot of people are going to be trying to beat the aggressive decks instead of be the aggressive decks, and so that's why I want to play this. I want to play against Jund, I want to play against Tron, and I want to play against Dredge.
All right. Well, you seem to have all your ducks in a row. You know what you want to beat. You know what you got. You got a spicy deck, which is nice to see kind of busting out in the Players' Championship.
Yep.
Your goal this whole year was to make it.
Yep.
You did. We're glad you're here. Thanks for joining me here in the Sideboard. For Todd Stevens, I'm Nick Miller. Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in Roanoke.